point 2, comparing data. Here we're going to be looking at pie charts and double bar graphs and when to use both of those. So if we're making a comparison within data, that means we're looking at like a single data set. A pie chart can be a really useful way for comparing that information if all of the data pieces add up to one single whole. In this example here, we see a pie chart is showing the spending of one family. 28% is spent on housing, some spent on taxes, retirement, debt, insurance, all kinds of fun stuff. But all of that adds up to all of their spending. But that's one family's spending. If you wanted to try to compare one family to another family, a pie chart wouldn't be very good at that. We'd have all these categories of spending for one family and all these categories of spending for another family. We couldn't put them all in one bar graph because they don't really add up to one whole. They add up to two wholes, and that'd be like 200%. This graph's really just all about 100% of the data. So this is one data set, and a pie chart is great at showing the comparisons. We can see which ways are being used more than others in a data set. For comparisons between data sets, a double bar graph can be a useful representation. So this example shows a double bar graph of the carbon dioxide emissions in the year 2000 and the year 2018 for 12 different countries. So all the yellow is carbon emissions in 2000, the red is carbon emissions in 2020. So we can see the differences between countries, but also at the same time looking at them in 2000 and 2018. So we can see, like, for instance, the US has lowered its carbon emissions in that time period, but for instance, China has increased their carbon emissions in that period. But overall, even though China has increased their emissions, it's still less than the carbon emissions for the USA. So we can use this to compare two sets of data at the same time with a double bar graph. Okay, here we have a table of data, and this is the data. This data represents the educational attainment of people in the United States, and the numbers here, even though they are pretty large in themselves, if we look at the top, it says the numbers in thousands. So if I look at this number right here, this is 0 to 4 years of education. It says 2,106. And we might think that's 2,106 people, but that's 2,000 thousands. So ultimately, we're moving the decimal point 3 places to the right, or adding 3 zeros to all of these numbers. So this is really 2,106,000. So they're a little bit nicer to work with, but just so you know, that's the kind of data we have here. Okay, so we also see here that we have years going down, 2020 down, all the way it goes down to 1940. Here is the total number of individuals that it's looking at. And it does tell us that this is individuals 25 years and older. So this 223,000 is really 223 million individuals. And so we can see 0 to 4 years of education, 5 to 8, 1 to 3 years of high school, 4 years of high school, meaning they graduated from high school, 1 to 3 years of college, which could be either people who didn't graduate college or maybe who graduated with an associate's degree, which is a 2-year degree, and then students with or people with a 4-year degree or more from college, and they didn't break that down any further past those 4 years. And so we see that data over years and years and years, back all the way to 1940. Now here we see data starting again, and this time it says male. At the top, this was both sexes. So this was men and women together, and then this is just men. If we go down further, we have just women. So if we head back to the top, the first thing we're going to want to do is kind of help us just in the way we view this data. If you notice, as we scroll down, when we're in the middle of the data like this, I have no clue what these columns of data is represented. I can't see the titles at the top of the columns. So if I come back up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor, I'm going to click on this cell here, and that kind of takes me all the way down to the 8th row. You can see there's some cells that are merged here. If I come up to view, what we're going to do is called freezing columns or rows. So if we go to freeze, we want to freeze the top couple rows. So you can freeze one row, you can freeze two rows. It says up to the current row 6. That's not exactly what I wanted to do. I was hoping it would go to 8. So let me click somewhere. So I'm definitely on 8. Okay, so now I can see I have 8 highlighted. I go View, Freeze, up to the current row. What did that do? Well, we see this gray line appeared here. Now, though, if we scroll down, we notice we can scroll down the rest. And if you look over here on the left-hand side, you can see we have rows 1 through 8, and then it's down to 24. I am scrolling down, but it's going to keep the top there. So now I can always see the titles of each of those columns. And that can be very helpful as we're scrolling through data. Terrific. All right, so that'll help us out a good bit. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and we want to see, okay, kind of like a percentage, what amount out of the whole people had in different education levels in 2020. So I'm going to select these data points, which are all from the year 2020. I'm not going to select the total amount because that's all these added together. But these are the individual data points for the year 2020. This is both men and women. Up here, we can go to Insert Chart, and it's going to pick one for us. It picked a bar graph. And there is nothing wrong with this bar graph. It does kind of tell us a little bit about, okay, this column here, which we can look at our data and realize is the college 4 or more years, is the highest. And we can kind of see it trickling on down. We are going to change the graph type. We're going to change this to a pie chart. So I'm going to go here where it says column chart on the side, and I have all kinds of options. I'm going to go down to pie chart. What? That looks horrible. What happened? What happened to all of our individual data points? Well, the pie chart is looking for data kind of organized vertically instead of horizontally like our data is. But right here is a nice button. We can switch the rows and columns, and we're going to check that. Oh, there it is. There's our individual pieces back. We already see that they've kind of given us some percentages here, which is terrific. Now, we would like to kind of label these with what they go with in our data. So here it says add label. So we could type in labels, but this little grid here is actually telling us to select cells. So we can click here to select cells, and then we can drag over the actual titles, 0 to 4, 5 to 8, on and on. Those are really the titles of our data. And when we click OK, now it added to those lines that are marking them what they actually represent. So now we can see this big teal section here is the 4 years or more. Great. So this is essentially a nice pie chart, but there's still some stuff missing, and we're going to customize this a little bit more. So we are on the Setup tab. We're going to go over to the Customize tab. We're just going to go down in order. Chart style. This is kind of your option. You can change these things. I do like kind of making the background a little different so it stands out on the back of my spreadsheet here. And if you want, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to make it 3D. I don't know. Looks a little sharper to me. All right. We're done there. I'm going to go down to the next tab, which is pie chart. Here, you could give it a donut hole, which just puts a hole in the center. Does that help us at all? No. If you like it, good. So I'm going to not do that. I am going to go here and label the slices. So if we go to label, now it's giving us the title in those cells, in those pieces of pie, if there's room. We can do the value, so like how many the actual data number was. We can do the percentage, or we could do value and percentage. Might as well do that. That's lots of good information that they can squeeze in there. Okay. In the pie slice category, we could actually go through and actually change the colors if we didn't like the colors that they had. So if like the 0 to 4 is blue, I could change that to this neon green color. I liked blue though better, especially since we already have a different green there. I won't get confused on talking about green. All right, we're going to move down to chart title. We definitely should give our chart a title. So this is Education Levels in 2020. Great. And I'm going to center that data. Spectacular. All right. We can go down to our legend. So right now it's on auto, which is actually the labeled category. This is labeled. There's little lines going to the things, labeling each of those pieces. That's fine. The lines are a little, I don't know, they're not my favorite. we could instead make a legend up here. And now we've kind of got a color-coded grid. We could do it at the top, we can do it at the bottom. I think since this graph has more room to the left and right, I might go ahead and put them over to the right. So I like that a lot. So now we can see 0 to 4 is the small piece, and then 5 to 8, and they actually kind of go in order, clockwise. That is a beautiful pie chart. All right, so great. I'm going to leave this pie chart just over here to the side, and that's educational levels in 2020. Well, this data has all the educational levels all the way back to 1940. So let's see how different things were in 1940. So if I scroll down, here I am at 1940. Remember, this is the total column, so we don't actually want column C, but I'm going to select these columns here, just these data points. All right, I'm going to go back to chart. Did it make a chart for us somewhere? Oh yeah, there it is up top. All right, it decided to throw it up top for us. Okay, so again, it went with a bar graph, which is not great for now comparing it to our pie chart. If we want to compare the two, we might want to make this one also a pie chart. Oh man, there's our blue circle again. So we're going to go switch that to rows. Looking better there. And I'm just going to put this so it's not right on top of this. But again, I'm missing those labels. What are these pieces of the pie actually representing? So I'm going to click here and click my little grid. So the labels are still the same row right here. So we'll select those labels, those titles. We get those. And I'm going to kind of go through and do the same customizing so this looks very similar to our past pie chart. In the chart style, I'm going to change the background color to a light gray. Oops, I guess I choose this light gray. And I'm going to make it 3D again. On the pie chart, I'm going to label value and percentage. For pie slice, I'm not going to change anything there. Let me look real quick. Yeah, 0 to 4 years, here is blue, and here was blue as well. So they kept the same colors for the same titles. For chart title, this is education levels in 1940. Great. I'll center that again. In my legend, I liked putting that off to the right. Spectacular. Okay, so if we kind of compare these two, we can see some of the big differences here. So look how small the blue and red pieces are in 2000 here. The people with 0 to 4 and 5 to 8 are a very small chunk. And I was hoping we could get the percent. But we can see those are a very small percentage. Here, the blue and the red are much bigger pieces. If I make this bigger here. There we go. We can see now a few percentages there. So now we can see a lot more information. The blue and the red were over 50% of people back in 1940 didn't have, or their most education was at most 8 years of education. So like graduating from 8th grade. So a big difference we can see between those two data sets. Okay, that was interesting. So we were able to compare 1940 to 2020. See the big differences there. You can also see like in 2020, 37.5% of people had a college degree, and a much smaller percentage there. Let's see here. If that's too much, I bet we could go back to and just put our percentages. Let's see. Oh yeah, if we just do percentages, now we can see some more of those numbers fit in there, which is great. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to change that to percentages. I didn't get them all, but we can at least see a little bit more information there. They didn't want to overwhelm that there, so they couldn't fit it all. All right, let's see about what other information we could go ahead and compare. Well, we have the data broken down into male and female as well. So let's look at 2020 male data. So education data there for males is right here. I highlight it, I click my chart. It keeps putting them up here at the top. I'm going to change it from a column chart to a pie chart again. Oh man, switch the rows and columns again. And we're going to add our label. Click on our grid to select our titles. Select our titles. Okay. Customize this. Chart style. Maybe the background color this time I'm going to pick as a light blue. That's not very nice. How about this one? That's better. All right, and then I'm going to make it 3D. I'm going to put the percentages in there. I'm not going to change anything there. I'm going to make this male education in 2020 and center that. Come down here. I'm going to put my legend on the right side. And nice. I'm going to go ahead and just drag this down so it's below my other pie charts. Wonderful. All right, so there's the male data. Let's compare that to our female data. So if we look at the female data, we highlight it, we click our insert chart. Put it up here at the top again, I'm guessing. We'll change it to a pie chart, switch rows and columns, and we'll add our label. Click here, click the grid, highlight the titles, click OK. Love it. Customize, background color, light blue, 3D, pie chart percentages marked, nothing on the pie slices. We'll call this female education in 2020. We'll center our title. We'll go to the legend. We'll put the legend on the right. All right, so let's drag this down, maybe. Put it down here beneath the male data. All right, so looking at the male and female data, we can see that in 2020, we have a higher percentage of women, females, graduating from college. Now, that doesn't mean the way this data is, that's of females, more females graduate than of males. It didn't necessarily mean straight up more women graduated college than men, but a higher percentage of the women. Same thing here, higher percentage of women had at least 1 to 3 years. Now, men had a higher percentage of being high school graduates, probably because they're also getting some of those percentages up from the other two. So that's why it's not exactly comparing the two of them, it's comparing within them. So since we think about that, and it's not really comparing across them, it's comparing within. It's comparing, if you're a woman, what's the percentage of women who have a college degree or not. There's a different way that we can actually compare the data so that we are literally comparing men to the women here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up. Okay, this is both sexes, so I'm going to go to the male data here. I'm going to highlight this row. Now I'm going to hold the control button as I highlight that same data in the female data set. So you can see that's highlighted and our male data is highlighted. And now if we go to insert chart, where did it put it? It put it up here for us. Okay, so right now we can kind of understand that this is the male data going up and then it restarts female data going up. But that's not really how I want to compare it. I want to compare really the tallest bar here and the tallest bar here because those, well actually the teal bars here, because those are both the data for graduating college. So we need to come over here to our chart editor. We're going to have to make 2 changes here to make the data really kind of compared in the same way. So right now it says that we're combining the ranges horizontally. And so that kind of means that horizontally here we've got like our 1 row of data, and that's what we've got here in our chart first. We're going to change that to vertically. And it didn't seem like it did too much yet, but now what we really need to also do is switch the rows and the columns. Now, this is what we were really looking at. So looking for. So the blue and the red. The blue is the male data and the red is the female data. And here we can see the differences. These last 2 bars are the data sets for 4 years of college or more, and then 1 to 3 years of college, and then high school, and then 1 to 3 years of high school, and 0 to 5 years, or 5 to 8 years, and 0 to 4 years. Great. So we also probably want to add some titles. So again, we'll go to our x-axis. we'll go to, yeah, so last time it said labels. This time it just says x-axis. And x-axis, if you remember from math class, is the horizontal axis. So if I click that, and then I click these sets here, and click OK, now we've added those nice labels to this. Terrific. So now this chart is really good at comparing the data for each. Now, I kind of wish up here at the top it was telling me that blue was male and red was female. So if I double-clicked on that, I can add a text label and call this male. Great. And if I double-click on this, I can add the label female. Wonderful. So now we know what those data points represent. Now we have the labels at the bottom. So this is better at comparing men and women. And I'm going to move it down here off to the side so that it is not over top of anything else. So this compares men to women more. This compares really women to women. And this compares men to men. And then these two pie charts, across them, we can really compare the differences in 1940 versus in 2000. Thanks so much for joining me for looking at ways that we can compare data with pie charts and bar graphs.